and welcome to A Drummer's Guide 2, the podcast all about the things that it takes to be a professional musician aside from actually playing your instrument. My name is Emily Dolan Davis. I am a drummer, have been since 1999, professional since 2008, and helping others on their journey in this professional world since 2018, and that is why we are here today. How exciting. Also, I'm very hungry, so I must apologise if my stomach wants to weigh in often. Yes, my reward after doing this episode is going to be food, so it's one of my great motivators in life, and today is no different. So let's start out just by doing a little Patreon shout out, and today I would like to shout out the wonderful John Huff. He has a podcast called the John Huff Podcast, where he either chats about subjects and what's going on with him, or he interviews people. I've been lucky enough to be a guest a couple of times on his podcast, and honestly, when we get chatting, it's just one of those things. He's one of those people that straight away I'm like, we get deep very quickly. We just have a very similar way of kind of like communicating, I think, and viewpoints on stuff. So we always have what I deem to be an interesting conversation. I enjoy myself. That's all I know. So if you want to go check out his podcast, it's really fantastic, like really great listening. He lives in Canada, and he also supports Arsenal. So we're always going to be friends. Speaking of which, I got my Baltimore Ravens top on today. So whoever asked me if I supported them, yes, I do. This is a present from my friend G. I love it. I love this top. But anyway, yes, so John Huff, you are fantastic. I salute you. Thank you for supporting the podcast. You are wonderful, and you have been supporting it for a long, long time. So I see you, and thank you. If you're someone that also wants to support this podcast, get a shout out eventually, I'm kind of just working my way through people, then if you go to patreon.com/Emily Drums, you can support it there. But let's get on to today's episode. So initially this episode was inspired by some work that I was doing for my degree, and basically I've recently been studying about like pigeons and rats and how they learn and all this sort of stuff, and I was like, this might be a fun thing to kind of like talk about. And then I proceeded to completely forget what the basis of what I was going to talk about was. I kind of had a gist, I wrote something down, but it wasn't enough, and I looked at it today and I was like, what am I trying to say? But coincidentally, I also got a message from someone that I've done a little bit of coaching with in the past, and they were talking to me about something that they went through recently. I won't name them. And I thought that actually this would be a great subject to talk on, and it kind of is linked very tenuously with what I've been learning in my degree about sort of how we learn and doing all that. And the idea of this is kind of learning in the most effective way to be ready when opportunities present themselves. Because this person, they told me about basically they had been wanting to get to a point where they would be being called for sessions, and they're working towards this goal, like getting an audition. That was kind of the goal. Anyway, they got an audition. They got this audition with this band they wanted to play with, and when it came down to the moment and going to do the actual audition, there was so much more to it that they didn't anticipate, that they ended up dropping the ball, essentially. I was going to use another turn of phrase that I'm not going to say. They dropped the ball, and it all was too overwhelming, and they couldn't even get to that audition process because there were so many moving parts in the in-between, if that makes sense. So I thought that this would be an interesting kind of thing, case study if you like, to look at, because I think we're all so, and I include myself in this, certainly in the past, where we're so focused on this one sort of like goal that we don't think about the individual components that need to be in place to get to that goal. And even if the opportunity is presented, like this person experienced, unfortunately, we kind of drop the ball on the practical skills that we need rather than this shiny object. And like I had this experience with my very first recording session. You know, I just wanted to be professional. I just wanted to get cool for the gig. I just wanted to get cool for a producer to go record on an EP, on an album. Well, let me tell you, I got the call. I was 17 and I rocked up, and I just thought by virtue of getting the call, I would be able to do it. I was so wrong. I didn't have the skills, and to be fair, I knew the skills on paper, but I didn't understand the level of skill needed. And I think that this person kind of experienced something similar. So I thought that I'd just sort of talk through what they experienced a little bit, and then how I would approach this, because I suppose the whole ethos of this episode, and generally my ethos, is that, and I learnt this very early on, when you want to be striving for a goal, say, you almost have to live like you've achieved that goal already, so that when it comes, and this isn't romantic or anything like that, when it comes, it's so ingrained in you that you just do this thing that the goal becomes almost irrelevant. Like, the goal is just another thing. You almost need to have the skills ready to the point of boredom, I want to say. That's the only word I feel I can use. Like, you need to be so well versed in all the different components and elements of what it means to be a professional musician that it's just another day. And the goal that you go for, yeah, okay, maybe 5 years ago when you looked at that would have been the dream, but now it's like, yeah, I already am doing this. This is just kind of an external marker, if you like, if you kind of see it like that. So I know we all have these big romantic dreams about like goals and getting there and all of that, but it's I want to say rarely, but I almost want to say never. It's never this big explosive fireworks moment where you get the call and then you get the gig. It's not that. It's kind of, you get the call and you've been grinding for years, and it's like you almost need to be overqualified to get there, because you need to be so comfortable and secure in yourself and secure in your ability to execute the skills needed, that those around you feel so unbelievably safe that it's just a logical choice. It's like, oh, there you are. That's kind of what you're aiming for. At least that's what I'm aiming for. So anyway, I want to talk about this person's experience with an audition. So the context of the audition was that, as I understand it, it was a remote audition, so it wasn't like being in the room, as it were, going to the rehearsal studio or whatever, but all of this is kind of, you know, this will all track anyway. So basically what this person discovered essentially was that there was a, I mean, let's just go through what you need to do basically. So there were elements about this that they didn't anticipate, I suppose. So the first was learning the songs, which seems really obvious, fine, but I think there were like 6 songs to learn and it was in a short period of time in their mind. So, okay, so that's one thing. So I've actually written notes here just so that I can make sure that I don't miss anything here. So, yeah, so it was learning the songs. They had to do a self-videoing situation. So that meant performing the songs as well as recording the audio from the songs so that it sounds half decent, as well as videoing the songs. So and I don't know whether they opted to do this or they must have done. They decided they wanted to do multiple angles for video, which is a whole nother thing, as well as editing the video as well. And I think that they had to do a talking to camera piece just to kind of like introduce themselves, whatever else. So 7 different components to go and do one audition. And this person, and even me, just like, as I sit down logically thinking about that, if you've never done those things or done very little of those things, that is so overwhelming. And if you've never even executed any of these things, that is going to take time. And most people are on a short deadline. It's not like, come and audition or come send in an audition video. You have a month. No, it's more like, we need it tomorrow or we need it later today. Like, that is, if you can get to a point where you're able to execute on that level, you're going to be in with a great chance, because not only are you showcasing your skills, which you hope that you are able to actually do the job, obviously, you are showing yourself to be very well prepared. You can work quickly, you can work under pressure, and what you create can be very high level. So it all kind of works. But if you're given this monstrous task all in one big lump, and it's, like I say, it's the first time you've tackled this kind of thing, it's a nightmare. Like, if I was in the position of that person, I would struggle if I'd never done any of these things. But luckily for me, I've spent years and years doing all those elements. So I just wanted to talk about that and how I've done it and how I would do it differently, maybe, how I kind of utilize things that are already, in our realm, as it were. I'm going to start speaking all like, generally to entice you in. No, but I think that there is great merit in kind of getting together these skills, first of all, and just really nailing these individual skills to then create and compound them to make this strong muscle of what being like, let's put it in the context of this, being a good auditioner is, right? And all of these skills are transferable anyway to different situations, so it's really, really useful. So I'm just going to kind of go through each of the skills and what I would do to nail them. So let's forget about this goal of an audition to go and, like, I don't know, go on tour. Let's put that as the goal. We need to almost put that to one side, because all the skills need to be in place before that happens, and it's going to take time and it's going to take hard work. And the best way to do that is to be self-sufficient, I suppose, and be able to create your own goals, your own milestones, and once you can do that, when I tell you the level of confidence that it gives you in terms of, like, I know that I can go do that thing. And as someone who has struggled with self-confidence and self-esteem and all of that, it's really funny. So in my real life, if you like, in my non-work life, I still really struggle with maybe not sometimes self-confidence, certainly self-esteem is something that is an endless thing I'm working on. It feels like progress is being made. But let me tell you, in my work life, I have an abundance in certain areas of my work life where I'm like, no, I know I can do that. I know I can find a way. And it's not because I'm so amazing or any of this, absolutely not. It's just purely that I have done it to death, to the point that it almost annoys me, to the point that it's in my DNA. It's literally in my bones. I don't think about it. It just happens because I've done it that much. Like I say, I've done it to the point of absolute, not exhaustion physically, like exhaustion and boredom. Boredom is a good word for it. Like boredom, where I'm like, oh, I'm just so over this. I've just done it so much. I'm just like, this is just what I do. It's not romantic. It's not, oh my God. It's just like, oh, okay, again. All right, done. Fine. So let's go through these things. So the first part of this audition process was learning these 6 songs, right? And like, we all have different timelines of how long it takes us to learn songs, depending on the complexity of the song, obviously the length of song. Don't give me any like 12-minute epic things. I just can't. I will, but I'd rather not. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, we all have a certain timeline that we work to, and I think it's very beneficial to look at how can I make that timeline as short as possible so that I can then spend time on the next steps of this process. And as I say, these other steps will feed into other situations anyway. They will be slightly different depending on the situation. For instance, if you're going into a room to actually audition, you're not going to need to do the filming side of things in terms of like multiple angles, editing a video, sending it across. But the other components will certainly help you. So let's start with learning songs. So I've spoken at length about how I learn songs. I even have 2 actual episodes on how I chart songs. I think they're only on YouTube though, so you'll have to look them up because obviously it's a very visual thing for me. And that's because I know, personally, I am a visual learner. I know some people who are mainly auditory learners, so they will learn it completely, well, not completely, a different way to me. I try and learn songs using all three of my senses, so auditorially. So there's three main ways that people learn. It's either visually, auditorily, or kinesthetically, which means like physically, right? And I am mainly a visual learner, but we all learn in all three ways, but to varying degrees, as far as I understand it at least. And so I try to employ all three of those ways of learning. However, if I'm on a time restraint, I'll go for visual every time, and that for me is charting songs. Now, the only way that you're going to get good at this is just by doing it lots, and I'd love to tell you there's some shortcut. There's not. I have been charting songs since, I don't know, 2008 probably. Actually, yeah, that makes sense. 2008. It has been one of the greatest skills I've ever learned in terms of return on investment. But let me tell you, the investment of time, the investment of the number of songs that I've charted, I couldn't even tell you. It must be in the tens of thousands now. Like, it's insane. And it's because I am insane and I am extreme and I obsess. It's who I am. I've made it work to my advantage. It has its drawbacks, but that is what I did for years. And the way that I did that personally was I would set myself deadlines, and I would basically I remember, I think I've mentioned this before, I remember distinctly, I was like, right, I'm just going to learn like the best albums, quote unquote, best albums, like pop albums, if you like, in the world, so that then like I've got a good standing in, if I rock up on a gig, the chances are I've charted this song before, I will have heard it, I will have some sort of reference, I may even have a chart to reference back to that I can take on the gig, like all these things. I thought, right, this is a logical thing to do, and maybe to some degree it is. It's also incredibly insane, but it's okay, it's me. So I looked up the top, I think it was, no, I know it was the Rolling Stone, as in the magazine, top 100 albums, and things like the Beatles was on there, Pet Sounds was on there, obviously Rolling Stone. So it was more, I'd say more like rock oriented, but it certainly like encompassed many decades of many brilliant songs and things that we still play today. So that was kind of like my goal, and I was like, right, now I don't remember this specifically. I'd imagine I started off trying to do one album a week and then tried to get up to one album a day to get through that list. Now, full transparency, never made it through the list, made it through many albums. It took many hours and many frustrating hours and many bored hours and many like annoyed hours of just charting, but it was just because I wanted to get good at it. So that was my self-imposed goal that I set. But what that meant was, when it came to actually doing a gig last minute or whatever, you know, if someone said to me, right, there's 20 songs on this list, the gig is in 4 hours, I'd be like, all right. I know they would be hard work, but I'd be like, yeah, but I can do it. I know that I can do it because I've done more than that. I have done it. It's not a problem. And that has served me. I can't tell you how many scrapes I've gotten out of because I was able to do that. And yeah, it's not an ideal situation. I don't want to be playing with a pile of charts in front of me, but I tell you what, a gig gets done. And that is what matters at the end of the day. I'm there to provide a service. And if I can, you know, come in and just be like, cool, you have a drummer on this gig, I will play the songs correctly, and that's that. Happy days. Like, you can't ask for much more in that kind of situation. But so that's what I kind of did, and if I were in this person's position, that's what I would do right now. And would I go as extreme with it? I can't promise I wouldn't personally, but I wouldn't recommend it well, would I recommend it? I don't know, it's hard to say. I think you have to know yourself. So for me, if I were doing it over again, I'd probably start out with some sort of, because bear in mind, when I was doing this, things like Spotify, not really a thing, but what I'd probably do is kind of find some Spotify playlists in the genre that I am looking to play in, and I would start out by charting one song a day for a week and just getting used to the process. And finding my way of charting that works for me, so that I know that when I look back at it, I could come in cold to a gig after 3 years of not even listening to that song and I'd still be able to play it. Now for me, it's more about a roadmap. It's never going to be this intensive, every single note being played kind of situation. It's not how I work. I need to glance down, see what it is, know what it is, play it, and it works. And like I say, this is where it becomes very individualized. It's a very individual process. You really have to work out what works for you. There is no one size fits all. There are guides, and I will say, you know, like I say, please do feel free to go and find my previous episodes on that if you want a starting point. But no one can tell you how to do it 100%. They can offer advice, but you have to find your way of doing it, because, you know, some people use words. Like I use words, I use numbers, I know what's going on, I have a certain way, I go across and down. It's like reading a book. Some people prefer like a list. Some people prefer using literal like shapes or like certain squiggles to kind of denote certain things about the song. I know some people that use different colors, and as you sort of progress, you really will find your very unique way of doing it. Like, I remember Aaron Sterling, I listened to him talk at a masterclass thing, and he was saying that when he charts songs, he literally doesn't chart anything unless it stands out and makes him go, oh, I didn't expect that, because his instincts are so like honed in. He's just done it so much. He knows what to expect. And if it's something unusual, he goes, oh, I need to note that down because I didn't expect that. And that is the only thing that will be on the page, is the unexpected bits, which I really like that. And in a way, I really, I've got a lot of respect for it. I definitely understand it. I wish I was that brave to do it. Maybe one day I will be. I'm not quite there yet, but yeah, that's a me thing. So anyway, that's what I would do. Sort of one song a week, and then maybe week 2 you do, sorry, not one song a week, one song a day for a week. Then maybe the next week you do 2 songs a day for a week. Maybe after that you start looking at more and more, sort of building it up and compounding it. That's kind of what this is all about, is compounding skills, and those are skills within themselves and then how those skills relate to each other. So that's the first one, and I think it's the biggest one, like learning the songs. And it needs to be, if you're going into an audition situation, think about the actual end goal in relation to that. You want to know it so well that people aren't questioning you. It looks like you've been there the whole time. It looks like you belong in that band. Now there's a second side to that, and I should say another side to that, maybe not a second because there's many sides, but another side to that is the performance side of things. So I talk about performance a lot, I know, and there are 2 types of performance for me. They're not mutually exclusive, but there's 2 things. So performance can be something that is entertaining and it's big arms and it's all this. But then there's a second type of performance that I feel is very underrated. I think it's more important. And it's a performance side of things that you are so comfortable with the material, what you're playing, how you understand it, how relaxed you are as a player, that it projects confidence. And again, this kind of comes off the back of learning songs so well that you know what you're doing. But if you are able to perform in a free way, that there is flow that flows throughout your body, what you're playing, how you're playing it, again, it just it projects a sense of confidence, which is just like, oh, this person knows what they're doing, we are going to be safe with this person. But also, ideally, you'd like to have a level of performance where you are able to bring something to the stage, you are able to bring energy to the stage, you are able to bring energy to the other members of the band so that they can feed off of you. Like, imagine, I was saying this to one of my coaching students the other day, because their worry was, and I've heard this a few times actually, their worry was, what if I'm being too energetic, I'm bringing too much energy for the gig? What if everyone else is like low energy and I'm like high energy? And I'm like, yeah, but where do you think energy starts from? That's the question that I always ask, like, where does it start from? And they're like, oh, well, I don't know, like maybe the singer. And I'm like, okay, but what if the singer is having an off day? Imagine they turn around and, let's say you're the drummer, let's talk in terms of that since I am a drummer, and they see the energy that you are giving to them and you are creating, you are the hub of that. That is so incredibly valuable, because if you're in a room and the audience either is lacking or maybe there's not even hardly an audience at all, but you are able to bring energy to that stage so that you, in that group of people on stage, can be present, be full of energy, be enjoying it, just be in the moment. That is going to be more enjoyable for everyone on stage, but also I guarantee you, I know it, I've seen it multiple times, many multiples, hundreds of multiples of times, it then projects to the audience, and the audience want to be part of that energy as well, and they will be locked in. If you're all looking a bit down and dapper, no, wrong word, absolutely the wrong word, a bit down, low energy, whatever, that doesn't compel people to want to be a part of it. They just think, oh, this is a bit boring, isn't it? We don't want that. So performance is a huge, huge thing. And I mean, the best way that I've spoken about this many times to do this is to video yourself and watch and listen back. So always, my number one rule, the playing cannot be compromised. That is my number one, that is a non-negotiable rule for me. But you can experiment with how you perform as long as the playing is not impeded. So another element of this person's audition was recording audio. So this is a whole skill set in itself, and if you're doing that for the first time, let me tell you, you ain't doing a good job. I've been there. I did an audition for what was it? So it wasn't for Right Said Fred, who's a band. They did I'm too sexy for my shirt, too sexy for that song, if you know that. That was an awful rendition, and they wanted me to come in and record. They wanted me to record remotely, but this was actually long before remote recording was a popular thing, and I just was like, all right, yeah, and I tried to record something with like one mic. Oh, when I tell you, it, like, I feel slightly embarrassed about it. I mean, it's fine. It didn't wreck my relationship with him or anything, but it, like, I was just thrown in the deep end, and I was like, I can't learn how to do this in an afternoon. It's not going to happen. So it was awful. Obviously, I didn't get the job on that side of things. We worked together in various ways since then, but and before then. But so the point is, I think recording audio is such a huge undertaking. If you're going to learn how to do that, you gotta be doing it all the time. And again, for me, it's all about doing a little bit every day, basically. Obviously, I'm very lucky that I had a studio. Don't currently, but I had a studio when I was learning about recording audio and all of that. And a key part of that I did a little bit, but the person that I heard speak about it, and I was like, this is so clever, how was I not doing this all of the time, was Greg Wells. I saw him talk on it was a seminar at NAMM back in, I don't even know, 2020, I guess. And he was saying that he's a fantastic producer, by the way, if you don't know Greg Wells. Absolutely amazing. And just lovely human, very like normal. Do you know what I mean? And he was talking about reference tracks, and he said every song that he does, he will always have a reference track in the actual in the session, so that if he's looking to produce a certain sound, he can A/B his song with the reference track. And I think that's also very useful for drums or any instrument. Doesn't matter what instrument. I don't know why I'm going just drums. Let's open it out here. Or producers or mix engineers, and just A/Bing and trying to recreate sounds is so useful. And this isn't about, well, it is about copying, but it's just copying to the point so that you understand how to create certain sounds, and then you can kind of bank that in your toolbox. You now know how to create a sound that sounds like John Bonham on a Led Zeppelin track, and that isn't just to do with the playing. The playing is a huge part of it, but you know how to use a bit of EQ, you know how to use compressors and stuff like that, and various other things. When I tell you there are just so many variables, it's a whole thing. It doesn't work for my brain. I like absolutes, and it's not absolute at all. It's all just endless, all of this. So anyway, that's what I would do if you were working on recording audio, and in terms of things like mic placement and stuff like that. YouTube is your best friend. That's what I was using all of the time to learn all the stuff that I was learning. Also, same with like editing audio. Someone was asking me about this in terms of using Beat Detective or just editing drums. We're talking drums specific, to tighten up like timing or whatever. I mean, what I will say, in an audition situation, I wouldn't do that because you're going to be playing live, so therefore you shouldn't be editing anything really. Create a nice sound, fine. Don't over process it, because otherwise what you're doing, you're literally setting yourself up for a fall. Like, if the playing isn't good enough, get better. It's not going to end well if you start editing. But if you're like literally learning how to record, yes, learn about editing, learn about moving around, timing beats, learn about things like triggers, triggering drum sounds with MIDI. There's nothing wrong with it. It's all creative. It's all music. It's just about enhancement for me. That's the main thing. You want to make it as good as you can, and sometimes, things like sample replacement and layering samples on your actual initial audio signal is fantastic. It can be really interesting. So then the next side of it that he, sorry, I was meaning to say they, but he was having to deal with was then filming. And again, this can kind of come off the back of the performance, so you can kind of get used to that. But multiple angles is what they were after, which, like I said, I don't know if it was the actual audition people or whether it was this person, but multiple angles is just going to create an extra level of like annoyance for you. Let me tell you, as someone who used to do this podcast in 2 angles, so that if there was any ums or ahs, or if I said something I was like, I don't really want to put that in the episode, I could cut. I'm done. I'd rather give you all the ums, the ahs, all that. So I will stick to 1 angle where possible, just for simplicity's sake, because it's the amount of time it takes. Unless you're looking to do a high production value situation, fine, you do your thing. But if you're looking to literally show what you do in a very honest way, I feel like almost a single angle builds trust with people. And I think that's the same in auditions. There is something about when there are multiple angles and when you can hear that there's a lot of processing on something, it's like, ooh, it might put some doubt in, like, is this person that good, or are they good at editing, or have they employed someone to edit it to make themselves sound better? So I think the more raw you can be, the better. And that almost comes down to sound as well in some respects. But anyway, if I were, again, like working on filming stuff, and I would also in tandem, I would use this as an excuse to work on my performance, I would post to Instagram, because again, it gives you a goal, it gives you a tangible result. Don't worry about the reaction to it, how many likes it's got, how many comments. That's not the point. The point is that you're doing it. It also is a fun kind of thing to break the barrier if you're worried about posting. Like, use it as an excuse. Like, that is your goal. It's just a post, not the result. Never look at the result. That's not the point. The results will come later down the line by happenstance, if you like. It's not about that. It's about getting the process sorted to the point, like I say, of boredom, of literal, like, this is just what I do. I set up a camera, I play to a song, I put it online, and we move on, and we move forward. That's it. The other part of this that I think is so then there's the editing of videos. Fine, you do that as you want to do it, and just, like I say, I think by posting videos you kind of encompass all the elements that you may not realize that you need to know. And again, do this all before the audition comes in. Like, just be doing this every week. Put up a new post of you playing. Obviously it works as self-promotion as well as you learning the skills. If it's not perfect, that's great. That means that you've got something to work on, but still post it, because otherwise it becomes a big thing as well. It doesn't need to be a big thing. You and I both know, right? When you're scrolling on Instagram or on TikTok or whatever else, we are doom scrolling. Something might catch our eye, catch our ear for all of 3 seconds. Maybe we stop and we go, I like that. We like and we keep going. Do we think about that thing? Probably not. Probably never again. So just think everyone else also uses Instagram in the same way. The point is you're showcasing yourself, you're putting it up there, and we move forward because it's going to be an ongoing process. Also, there's something lovely about documenting your progress, I think. I look back at things on my Instagram that are not great. They're not great. But where I am now, I'm like, oh yeah, that is improvement. I like that. I wear that as a badge of honor. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, there's that side of things. That's how you can kind of set yourself goals that are useful as well in the larger picture, if you like. The final thing that I think that they were asked to do was to do a to-camera piece. Now by to-camera piece, I mean talking to the camera. So like I'm doing right now, just sort of saying about who they are, a little bit about them, what their experience is, I think that this is the most underrated skill in terms of building relationships with people, especially online, building trust, presenting yourself in a way that people feel, like I say, safe, feel like you're very experienced. And it's not necessarily what you're saying, but it's how you're saying it. And these skills, like I say, they can be transferred over to not just these audition or interview situations, but they can be transferred over to doing all sorts of things, doing like clinics or seminars in your instrument, or even teaching. Like if you're teaching one-to-one, to be able to articulate and speak. And this is as someone who, I don't consider myself very articulate necessarily. I go off on tangents, I know that you know this, and all that sort of stuff. However, I have normalized this so much that I don't care. And I don't care how I come across. I'm just me because I'm not trying to be perfect, and I'm not tense. I'm not like, if you look at my very first, I know I've said this multiple times very recently, so I'm sorry that I keep repeating myself, but if you look at my very first talking to video pieces, my Ask M series on YouTube, it's still up there. I'll probably always keep it up there because I think it's a good point of reference. I'm so tense and I'm so trying to be the thing and I'm trying to convey the message and all of this. And even to be fair, the beginning of this podcast, if you go back to the very first episode, there is an element of, you can see I suppose anxiety is a good word, like it's the tension. I think that's a better word. And it's not a good kind of tension. It's like a unease. There's an unease with me. Whereas now I've just literally gotten to the point where I'm like, it's fine. I'm just going to talk. Some people are going to like it. Some people aren't. And that is absolutely fine. I'm just here to hopefully shed some light, shed some experience. That's it. Take it or leave it. And again, it's just because I've done it a lot. So if I have to do a to-camera piece, it's not even a thing. I'm just like, hey, how you doing? My name's Emma Davis. I'm a drummer, blah, 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 blah. Here, I'm human. And again, I think it's such an underrated thing because you can be a fantastic player, and I've come across this so often. But if you come on camera and then you're like, hi, yeah, so I play the drums and yeah, so I've been playing and, looking down. Sorry, if you're listening to this right now, I'm looking literally at the floor. My body language is all inwards. My arms are crossed. It's not confident. It's not relaxed. It's not open. Now, yes, it might be fine that you're a fantastic player, but let me tell you, you are going to be in the presence of other people for like 22 hours of the day. If you are like, aside from the playing part, you're on tour buses, you're in backstage, you are in dressing rooms, you are traveling, you are on planes, you are interacting with people. And if you come across as this either unconfident or very stressed or very like uneasy, there's an uneasiness, even if it's subconsciously, people might be like, oh, there's something a bit off about them. And there might be nothing off about you, it's just that you're uncomfortable. And that's fine, but let's minimize that. Why would you not try to minimize that a little bit so you can just be yourself? It's not about putting on a facade. I was talking to a friend about this. I found it very difficult to be around them because for a long time, not a long time, no, it was a long time, they felt that they had to put on a show to people just day to day, like when they were talking to people. And I've known this person for pretty much all of my life. And I was like, I found it so hard to talk to you because it wasn't you. It was like a version of you that was, it just didn't feel very honest. And I know you. I know how amazing you are. You just need to be you. And luckily they've come back. They are themselves again, which is fantastic. Literally one of my favourite people on the planet. And anyway, but it's about showing yourself, because the person that is watching, or the people that are watching these videos of you talking, you might hit on something. The way you talk, the way you phrase things, it may make them go, oh, like, this is my person. Like, I get this person. I love the way they talk. I love the way they phrase things. Like, this is cool. Or equally, they might be like, oh, don't like this person. That's fine. That's fine. Not everyone's gonna connect. Do you know what I mean? But in terms of practicing this, I would suggest, because this is a hard one to practice, like speaking publicly. And unless you want to start a podcast or something like this, which, please go ahead, it's a lot of work. But you can do it. If I can do it, anyone can do it, honestly. But what I'd start with is just doing this, like, it's all about doing small things at first, just to get into the rhythm of it. I would do like stories on your Instagram, for instance, where you're just talking to camera, and it can be something about your day, it can be something about what you're up to. Ideally it will be something related to music, so it's like, hey, just in the studio right now and about to record this song for whoever. I'm using these mics today, I'm using this setup, I'm, whatever else, whatever you want to sort of say. And they can be 10 seconds long, but the point is, it's about normalizing it. So you become confident, because it's not a thing. It's not a thing anymore. It's just what you do. It's just who you are, and feeling comfortable enough to reveal yourself. Side benefit of this is that a big part of the reason that people get employed in every which way is their personality. So this will actually help your career. Although it might feel awkward at first, it will get easier. I promise you, it will take time, as all of this will. But I think the point that I'm trying to make about this is that by doing all these small actions in all these different areas, it will lead to a successful audition. And in fact, it's not even about being a successful audition. By successful, I don't mean getting the job. I mean doing the audition. In the case of this person, they didn't even get to do the audition. All these skills were too much, and they ran out of time, they ran out of skill sets. They didn't even manage to get their foot, not even their little toe in the door, not even a little bit. And I'm sure right now, or I know right now, they're feeling pretty down about that. I almost guarantee they'll look back on this and go, that was actually a really important lesson. I'm glad that I went through it, because I've had almost exactly the same experience. It's one of the best things that happened to me in terms of my career. But I think by working on, like I say, working on these skills individually with a view to being successful in that you're able to execute the end result, whenever that may appear, these skills will also transfer over to so many different areas of your career and of your life. And new opportunities will present themselves that you didn't even know were a thing until they come at you in front of your face, you know what I mean? So yeah, I'd say have a look at the individual sort of parts of any goal that you're trying to get to, and then just start doing it as if you're already doing the thing. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. I don't know if I've expressed that in a good way. But yeah, and if you don't know what those steps are, ask people. There are so many people that have done or are doing what you probably want to do. Ask their opinion. And remember, it's their opinion, it's their experience. There are many ways to do this thing. But if you can start normalizing those behaviors so that it's just something that you do, those skills will compound not just on themselves, but in relation to each other, and you will create this unique set of skills, and you will become a unique person that can offer this unique package that is you to a gig, to an audition, to a tour, to a recording session, to whatever you choose to do in the future. It might not even be music related. So yeah, anyway, I hope that this kind of helps you somewhat, and yeah, I hope it makes sense more than anything. So I'd say, yeah, just go after the small day-to-day things. Just develop them day to day before they become the big goal, because you want to be ready for the big goal rather than scrambling for the big goal. Because I'm sorry, but if you get an audition and let's say you do pull it together, all these little things, not little, they're all quite big, but all these skills, and you just about hold it together to go and do this audition, do you reckon you're going to feel like confident and like comfortable? Oh, I don't think so. I feel awkward right now even thinking about it, and I'm not there. But anyway, if you have enjoyed this episode, then please do feel free to like, share with friends, and subscribe. If you would like to support this podcast on Patreon, you can, along with John Huff. And again, go check out the John Huff podcast, fantastic podcast. If you go to if you go to patreon.com/Emily Drums, you can support this podcast there. If you have a question specifically that you would like me to answer on a future episode, you can go to emilydrums.com/AMA. And if you'd like to work with me one-on-one, to do some one-on-one coaching, we can get you to whatever your goals are. We can normalize all the behaviors, all the skills. We can make you very bored. What a pitch. If you do want to work one-on-one at all, then you can reach out to me either on Instagram, if you look for @HeyEmilyDrums, or just go to emilydrums.com and you can reach out there. But anyway, I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, whatever you're up to. The sun is out here. It's absolutely stunning. Beautiful start to the week. Although by the time you listen to this, it will be the end of your week. So I hope you had a good week, and I will see you next time for another episode. All right, lots of love to you. See you later. Bye.